Good evening. Welcome to Lipscomb University. This is what a Tuesday night at Lipscomb feels like if you haven't been here very often. It's busy, it's crowded, and there's not a lot of parking because we're a 24-hour campus. I'm Beth Morrow. I'm the Assistant Dean for the College of Leadership and Public Service here at Lipscomb University, and I'm really glad and happy and honored to welcome you all this evening to our third installment of our fall series called Collaborative Conversations. Our topic is immigration. We started with a really great group in September talking about immigration and its impact on the family from a legal perspective mostly. And then in October, we talked about immigration from the standpoint of agriculture and the impact of labor. And we had a really interesting dialogue that evening in October. And tonight, we're taking a different approach. And we're hosted tonight by the Civic Leadership Institute, the Nelson Andrews Institute for Civic Leadership. How many folks are in here representing the current cohort, the new fall cohort for the Andrews Institute for Civic Leadership? Thank you all. This is their work tonight, and we want to give them a round of applause first and foremost. These are our graduate students who are currently pursuing a Master of Arts in Civic Leadership. So the College of Leadership and Public Service is made up of the Andrews Institute for Civic Leadership, which you'll hear a little bit more about tonight, and Dr. Steele will talk about that a little bit. Also, the Institute for Conflict Management, the Institute for Law, Justice, and Society, the Institute for Sustainable Practice, and in 2016, we're launching a School of Public Policy and a new master's degree in Leadership and Public Service in the fall of 16. So it's an exciting place to be, and the whole point of our college is to pull from lots of different areas, public, private, nonprofit, different types of entities, and have some really critical conversations, such as this one, in a way and a process and from different vantage points where we can talk about things and study them and find solutions in a different type of way. So what I want you to do tonight is really kind of dig in. This is like a classroom, and be engaged. I know we've got undergrads, we've got members of the public, we've got grad students, we've got faculty members with lots of doctorates, but just get comfortable and be present tonight for this next hour, and really make it work for what it's supposed to be tonight. So again, welcome from Lipscomb University, and I'll introduce Dr. Michelle Steele, the academic director for the Institute for Civic Leadership.
This is absolutely beautiful. I believe when the students put this together, this is exactly what they envisioned. Again, I'm Michelle Cummings Steele. I am the academic director for the Nelson and Sue Andrews Institute for Civic Leadership, and I too want to welcome you this evening. In the Institute, we offer a Master of Arts in Civic Leadership where we teach our students to do just this, to identify needs, to analyze them, and to initiate conversation that solves some of those issues. We do that in a period of about 15 months. But our students in this cohort came together in August, and I gave them an assignment. And it was to do this tonight, to bring people together to talk about what the college is interested in, and that's immigration. The students, you all will see as you go through this process tonight, have done a phenomenal job, and I'm very proud of them. It's almost like, and I don't know what this feels like, but to have that baby, I know that, but to see them go away to college, and you're like, oh my God, they're gone. They have done this. I just can't tell you all how proud I am of you. They have really worked through this process, and for that, I am so extremely thankful. Again, tonight, our students have chosen this format for this important conversation, changing the narrative. They wanted to do exactly what we teach, and that's to bring people to come, sit around a table, and to have conversation that is impactful. We may not get to a solution this evening, but what we can say is those that are interested in the topic, those who serve the population, those who have came to us with no frame of reference will leave here all the more impacted by this discussion and maybe want to do something about it. So again, we may not come to solutions this evening, but we have opened up the conversation, and for that I am extremely grateful. Thank you all for being here, and enjoy.
Immigrants and refugees are two different categories. So refugees are specifically designated as refugees. They have to go through the whole UNHCR process. They have to have been displaced from their country or internally because of war, famine, some kind of natural disaster, or ethnic conflict, something that UNHCR recognizes and goes in and tries to resolve. And then it's a very long process. If that's not been resolved, then they find other places to send the refugees to. So refugees actually get the designation before they arrive in the US as refugees. Immigrants choose to come to America. Refugees didn't really have a choice to leave their home country, so they ended up in America. So a lot of my clients, or people that I was helping when I was doing job help, they didn't speak any English. They might have come with a translator, but we found a way to communicate. So people shouldn't be scared that, oh, I don't have anything common. They're human beings. And once you get to know them, they're great people. So don't be scared that you guys don't speak the same language. You know, everybody understands love. Everybody understands a smile. Everybody, so that's what I would say. Reach out to refugees because they're awesome.
Well, watching the news or reading the paper, it can seem like what's happening in Syria and Europe is new and unprecedented, and that we may not have the systems or the structure to welcome and take in these refugees. But I wish people would remember that welcoming refugees and being a home for people seeking refuge is part of our history. And in fact, there's been many times in American history where we've welcomed large numbers of people, whether the Vietnamese or otherwise. And I'm incredibly proud that the narrative, especially in Nashville, has shifted to not how immigrants and refugees are a challenge that needs to be managed, but instead an opportunity and an incredible gift to our city. We are anticipating a lot of renewed anti-refugee legislation at the state level. And so one thing that folks can do is call their state legislator and let them know that the Refugee Resettlement Program is strengthening our state, and that as their constituent, you hope that they'll defend the program in the legislature.
Immigrants who come to this country, refugees who come to this country, are entitled to the same basic civil and human rights as anybody else, regardless of citizenship. I don't know that it's a misconception about refugees as much as it is a perception of who people think they are and how important they think their position is as opposed to someone else's. And that really is the bigger issue. I think I'm always surprised that people still have a fear of the unknown and of people who are different from them. Conversations that I'm hearing remind me of the 50s and the 60s. And I am a Nashville native. And I think that surprises me, because working with refugees and immigrants throughout this community, when you start hearing some of the same kinds of things now that I heard more than 50 years ago, it says we have come a long way, but we still have a ways to go, and we still have a lot of work to do. Someone talked about making place at the table for everyone. And I think that's really part of the inspiration, is making sure there's a place at the table, that no one is excluded, and that in this process that we all learn, we all grow, and we can all thrive.
I would advocate for more of what we're doing, and that is the whole notion of cultural awareness and helping people understand the differences between different groups of people. That differences do not equate to deficiencies, that it's important for us to understand and recognize that just because someone comes from a different cultural context, it simply means that they have a different set of experiences. It doesn't mean that their values are different or distorted. It doesn't mean that they don't have the same basic interests in having good communities, good education, good families, and low crime. They want a decent house and that type of thing. So our job basically is to help promote those kinds of healthy community dialogues that people can begin understanding one another and walk across bridges of differences and be able to understand people a whole lot better simply by having relationships with them.
He was a refugee who had all the resources he needed and used them wisely and connected with the people that were there providing support, and then moved on to other things, and is now an active leader in our community, helping not only people from Kurdistan, which is where he's from, but also other immigrants and refugees, and doing awesome things. So they are just so grateful for the chance that they get to give back to, and everything they keep saying is, you know, I've been helped by wonderful people. I just want to help, you know, people regardless of where they come from. It's really inspirational, and it's pretty amazing. So really, that's just basically the most surprising thing, to see how they can take whatever they got and be so appreciative, and in turn want to like give back or even give more back. People helping people is what should come down to.
The most surprising and most interesting thing that I've learned with working with refugees is that their resiliency is really outstanding, but also their capacity to learn new skills and to develop their English language proficiency and their ability to navigate a completely foreign community and foreign environment grows very quickly. And it's just a matter of exposing and kind of leading them to the opportunities that they really need, that our agency is able to provide, that they won't get if they're not coming in and if they're not active clients of ours, especially in the after school setting, in that it's not as difficult as I feel like a lot of people think it is to acclimate new arrivals and refugees and immigrants to Nashville and into the English language. They pick up the skills and they pick up the work pretty quickly. It's really just a matter of helping them and providing them the opportunity to do so, and not just expecting them to be able to navigate this completely on their own, but really kind of ushering them to the appropriate services and making those connections with them and being really an advocate for them, and not just, you know, turning our backs and letting them work it out for themselves.
Job for you, and at first sounds like the perfect job, a really good job, but then after that they start obligating them to sell themselves or to do other things or to use drugs or do other things, and they always have so much control over them because they always tell them, well, if you tell me, I'm gonna call immigration on you, or you know, have so much power, this kind of stuff, and that's how it usually they get involved in this kind of thing.
When the workers come in at the worker center, you can see service, advocate, or organized. Workers dignity line is organized. So this is the main idea, organize the work. Because the worker organize all their own file. So, and this is why I'm working here, and I'm really proud to work here.
So I do the work I do because I truly believe that being able to communicate in English is a prerequisite for being successful in the U.S. By helping new arrivals gain the English skills when they first get here, actually making the classes accessible to them, which is what ESL To Go does so well. I know that we're creating a future for that individual and their family that will help them for years to come. The second being that, you know, refugees are terrorists and they're from Iraq and Afghanistan and Syria and they're here to harm us. Refugees are fleeing the bad guys. They're here because their lives were in danger. They're not the bad guys themselves. And I think a third major misconception is that refugees come here with nothing. They're these broken, poor people who just arrived with their clothes on their backs. It's just very important to not stereotype refugees as a whole and realize that where someone is coming from really is going to change their story.
We do have to help them get their feet on the ground first, and I know right now some resettlement agencies are really struggling because their numbers increased kind of overnight.
Oh, wow.
So they can't find affordable housing for them quickly, just like a lot of Nashvillians are struggling with. They need things like pots and pans and clothes for the first few months.
Wow.
So those are other ways that we can be welcoming, but supporting those resettlement agencies and making sure they have a realistic way to get started on the right path when they move here. There's fear definitely around the religious dialogue. I think that's kind of a global conversation we're having, that people don't understand another religion and they think that it might be negative if they don't know about it. So I think if I had one wish for Nashvillians or Tennesseans to understand something about a refugee or an immigrant, it would be that they would get to meet one in person and hear their story.
Good evening. My name is Sandra Longweaver, and I am a member of the Civic Leadership Cohort 5, who just put together the video that you saw. We thought we'd start this evening's conversation with the video you've just seen, and we want to thank everyone who participated, and everybody's sort of scattered through the room, but thank you very much for participating. It's a great way to jumpstart what we want to do. And during the video, you heard words like there is no choice, there's a different experience, there's same basic interest, giving back, resilient, communication, fleeing the bad guys, opportunity, growth, a gift to our community. We'll take a chance this evening to explore those words and more as we go through the evening. So we have 3 speakers who will discuss the immigrant and refugee experience in the Nashville area. And then there will be a chance to ask our presenters questions, and we'll have a table discussion. That's why we have you at tables this evening. We wanted to have small conversations, and so you could get the benefit of all that's discussed this evening. You have table leaders. At every table, there's someone from our class who will lead the discussion as we get into it. As our speakers are talking, if you have questions, please write it on the index cards you'll find on the table, and those cards will be picked up, and we'll try to answer some of the questions as our speakers finish talking. Our goal is for you to learn something this evening and be able to take an action step to change the narrative. Please feel free to tweet and to post to Facebook. And now let us begin. Our first speaker of the evening is Kelly Branson, who is, just a moment, give me a second, and you'll find all this in your brochures, which turned out really well. She's been the Director of Refugee and Immigration Services for Catholic Charities of Tennessee since 2008. She's worked tirelessly in meeting the agency's ministry of providing for all of God's children with the immigrant population. Before joining Catholic Charities, Ms. Branson worked in the areas of child welfare and juvenile justice for the Tennessee Department of Children's Services, the Davidson County Juvenile Court, Jackson County Family Court, and overseeing the child welfare programs of Catholic Charities. She has a master's degree in forensic psychology and is on faculty at the University of Phoenix. Our second speaker will be Muhammad Shukri Hassan, who is the founder and executive director of the New American Development Center, a Nashville nonprofit dedicated to helping refugees and immigrants start businesses through education and workshops. Muhammad Shukri Hassan is a civically engaged entrepreneur with significant experience in the community organizing, immigrant integration, and grassroots advocacy. He is the former director Welcoming Tennessee Initiative at TIRRC. He currently serves on the Mayor's New American Advisory Council and sits on the board of directors of the Nashville International Center for Empowerment, and is a founding member of the American Muslim Advisory Council. Hassan is a graduate of Tennessee State University and is currently finishing his master's here at Lipscomb University. He is originally a refugee from Somalia. He recently told the Tennessean, "My favorite part of coming to America, leaving a place where there were no options in life, coming to a place that is increasingly challenging and rewarding at the same time. Here, despite the challenges, you are the driver of your destiny." Please welcome our speakers, Ms. Kelly Branson and Muhammad Shukri Hassan.
Thank you for having me here tonight, and I hope I can provide something interesting and new for people to know. The refugee process is a lengthy one on the front end. Getting that approval through the United Nations High Commissioner on Refugees to get refugee status, being approved for resettlement, getting a destination country, finding an opportunity finally to travel to that country can take anywhere from 2 to 25 years or more. Once you make that trip, though, things speed up really, really fast because for every refugee who arrives in the United States, the goal is self-sufficiency through employment. And it's self-sufficiency through employment within 6 to 8 months of getting here in a culture you don't know, with a language you probably don't speak, and nothing really that is familiar to you. But we're talking about refugees. We're talking about people who have survived through horrific situations, who face these challenges. And the first things they say when they arrive at our office is, "Who's going to teach me English? When can I start working?" In fact, I had a lady who came to my office very mad because I had not gotten her a job yet. She had been here 5 days. Slow down a little bit. There are a number of things that happen quickly in that first month. They've got medical screenings, they've got English language testing, they've got employment assessments to go through, and self-sufficiency plans to complete, to think about all the challenges that need to be addressed. And they go through those things, and then after that first month, it really is about finding a job, learning English. Every client who doesn't speak English gets referred to an English class. However, I don't know if you know this, our language is not that easy to learn. I don't know if you remember learning how to speak English. You probably started younger than a lot of our clients. Many of our clients are actually illiterate in their native language, which also makes it difficult. Many have never been to a school before. They get into an English class that meets twice a week for a couple hours each time. But for every client who arrives, the goal, again, is self-sufficiency through employment. And in those first 6 to 8 months, they are receiving federally funded cash assistance to support them until we get them a job. But they receive that on the condition that they participate in an employment search and they take the first available job that's offered to them. Here's the good news and the bad news. We are really good at finding jobs for our clients. We resettle about 550 refugees a year. We can usually find jobs within 3 months of them arriving. Doesn't matter what their language levels are, doesn't matter what their skills are, and we receive everybody from farmers and fishermen to surgeons and engineers. The jobs that they get, if they are professionals in their countries, they're not going to get those jobs when they arrive here. There's a path that they can work towards to get back to that field, but it takes many years and many dollars. I had a surgeon who arrived who, once he got here, he took a course to be a certified nurse assistant because it was in a field that was familiar to him and it was a way he could support his wife and his children, and he said he would work his way back as far as he could get, but that was a way to start supporting his family. So most of our clients take, entry-level positions, manual labor, a lot of production type work. And what happens is once they start working, then English becomes a challenge to them because now their work schedule might conflict with their ESL classes. So one of the great things that you saw a clip before, and there's the truck out there, the ESL to Go, is I love the program, and so I'm giving them a shout out because I think they're awesome. One of the things that we said years ago is, all of our clients don't have access to classes because it depends on where they live. By having a bus or truck that goes around and takes the classroom to them and that does it at different hours throughout the day, it makes it available to our clients to try and learn English. But that is the biggest challenge, is learning the language. And then the other challenge, I said we were great at finding jobs. We are great. Here's what's not great. Our transportation system in Nashville is not good. Probably all of you drove a car to get here tonight, I'm guessing for the most part. Our clients don't have their driver's licenses. Many times it takes quite a while before they can get their driver's license. It may take 3 hours on a bus to get to their job that's going to pay a low wage and to get home again. So these are the biggest challenges. But what I have seen is that our clients are amazing people. They face those challenges. They do the work that has to be done to take care of themselves and their families. They are, they're excited to be in a place where they're not having to depend on anybody else for their daily needs, but to support their families, to be able to take care of their own, and to just have a chance to live a life that we all probably take for granted on a daily basis. Trying to think if there's anything else that I should say. I don't know where I'm at in my time. I'm bad about that. Another minute. Oh, I should get something important in. What I will say, I want to reiterate what was said in the film. The most important thing I could tell people is to make a one-on-one connection. That's the thing that helps our clients the most, I think, in acclimating to our country, is being able to have what we refer to sometimes as an American friend. Somebody who doesn't have to have any special skills. You don't have to know how to ride the bus yourself. But somebody who will come and spend some time with them. And it doesn't have to be time spent just trying to teach them English. Show them a park. Take them by the library. A lot of our clients have gotten their library cards. They love going. We had a lesson one day about how do you order at a restaurant at the farmer's market. We've had ladies who've never had an ice cream cone from McDonald's. They said it was the best thing ever in their lives. So that's what I would encourage people is if you want to know about refugees and immigrants, then know a refugee or immigrant. Meet them, make a connection. Commit yourself to a relationship with somebody that, maybe takes a couple hours a week, but it's just a real chance to make that one-on-one connection and learn about them. Thank you.
You've heard the story of what it's like from the agency point of view when refugees first arrive, and we're now going to hear a story from Mr. Hassan about what it is like to arrive in this country. And please, if you have questions, please write them on the index cards and send them forward so we can ask them after Mr. Hassan is done. Thank you.
Thank you, Kelly. Yes, my name is Mohammed Shukri Hassan, and I would like to speak to what being a refugee. So I spent my entire boyhood as a refugee in a refugee camp in Kenya. But I would like to just mix it up on what it feels like, and also being a civic leader in Nashville, and a lot of great things going on and welcoming and being including refugees in our community, refugees and immigrants. But my story started in Kenya. My country, Somalia, was descended into civil war, and a lot of things happened. Like, it's very similar to the things that was going on right now in Syria. So from folks in a high level of government to doctors to engineers, everybody become refugees and flees away. And then the country that's hosting you in refugee camp, period. And no movements allowed, and hundreds of thousands of people are in a camp. And UN is providing you with food and oil, and there's food given weekly, and that's what you survive on. And sometimes that goes out and comes back. And then after a while, everybody wants to go to Europe, goes to America, everybody gets excited. So there's this movie theater set up, and you watch all American movies, and you get excited about everything about Hollywood. Everybody has that hope. at night. And then you in this refugee camp, and for a while, there's this lottery that you apply through, but only 1% of the world refugees get lucky to come to either America. So folks that we flee Somalia early 90s, this is 2015, 25 years later, some of them are still in a refugee camp. And then a lot of your friends, go to Sweden, some end up in Canada, some in England, and you have that sense of being scattered. But one of the exciting things coming through the process as a boy through Kenya process is there's an organization called IOM, the International Organization for Migration, and you apply through it. And then every day, that's your hope. The whole family gets up and go, look at this wall, who gets posted. And then that family is living for that country. And that's what keeps you going. That's the only hope, no school, no life, no movement. So my family got lucky. My mother came here in 1997 by herself, not speaking a word of English. She got settled in Atlanta. And Mom started working at Marshall and the DeKalb County Farmers Market, 2 jobs to send us small money, and then eventually sponsored us. And so the good thing with refugee is there's a family reunification program that once few of them get here, they're able to send for their family to be reunited. But it took for a while for us to be reunited with my mom. And then we get here, and to be honest with you guys, this English I'm speaking, half of it I learned from watching Saved by the Bell and so many other TV shows. So refugees, a lot of misimpression that I really sometimes fight about is that, oh, they don't want to learn language, they don't want to integrate, and that's not true. I mean, I've seen older folks that want to walk all the way just to learn English, and even now in my community, they ask me like, Mohammed, can you set up like an evening classes for us that's more convenient? But because of all the horrible war experiences and the whole year that they spent checking out and being hopeless, once they come here, a lot of things affect them. I mean, from working 2 jobs to trying to a language that's not yours, and a 40-year-old, 30-year-old, 50-year-old who has 6 kids to raise in America. I mean, life is just being hard for some of the Americans. So it's 3 times harder. So sometimes for the feelings for refugees is that regardless of how hard, even immigrants, how hard they work. There are a lot of great people, a lot of great agencies that work, but you have Donald Trump coming on TV and saying they're rapists, they're this and they're that. So sometimes our feelings inside is that there's a quote out there that says that you broke the ocean in half to be here, only to meet nothing that wants you. And sometimes that's how as immigrants feel, not only refugees. And then there's some people that used to do super well in their countries, and America's a land of opportunity. They come here and they become immigrant, and they want to really work, and they really run into a lot of challenges. So one thing that gives me hope and that gives me drive in this town is there's a lot of great people that are trying to do something about it. And being at the center and joining these agencies, supporting these agencies is one thing. The other thing is the new arrivals. Before this event here, I was just at the Mayor's New American Advisory Council with Leah, and one of the conversations that came was the Syrian refugees that might be coming here. So I think supporting the local agencies, volunteering to teach a class, because refugees are hungry to learn their language. My mom still, her English is improving, but she won't let me translate for her right now. Because she won't, I'm like, Mom, that's not how, she's like, just sit down, just go away. So they really want to express themselves and be proud and integrate and be Americans, but there's a lot of challenges that we run into as a refugee community. So being an ally, being an advocate, always connect, like she just suggested, that getting to know them, connecting them, and just showing them around parks and stuff, that's really good. The other thing that a lot of you guys don't know is that refugees are the most networked people in the world, because chances are their friends live in Lewiston, Maine, and Seattle, and everywhere. There's somebody there, and they're always talking to them about what's going on in their city, how everybody's doing back home. So I think connecting with one can also change your life and maybe expand your perspective as of someone who never left Tennessee or America. So I think keeping that in mind is really good. I mean, I'm very good at answering questions but not talking. But that is my kind of experience as a refugee. And sometimes, personally, as Mohammed, I'm really privileged to grow up and spend half of my life in America and get to do some things. And one thing I see personally is that being a refugee, and you kind of appreciate what you have and increase your empathy. And sometimes I have to control myself because in this town I want to get involved in everything and help around everything. And that comes from my experience as a boy being a refugee. And that's the way I connect to it. So having a civic leaders and Roots Institute anchoring this kind of conversation, I'm really hopeful for Nashville, for us to be a leader in not welcoming only refugees, but welcoming all kind of inclusive communities, because this is what's really needed. Considering the kind of political climate we are about to go on. So I'll be glad to stay longer and answer personal questions. But again, I'm very available. I'm really involved in a lot of these agencies, either on the board level or day-to-day level. So just let me know and ask me any questions, what to be a refugee or what can you do for refugees.
And let's pause now in this part of the conversation to ask questions. I'm hoping that you all have some questions for our first two speakers. Quiet. This is not a place to come be quiet. This is a place to have a conversation. Do you have a question? And I have. Do you have a question here?
Well, it wasn't a question, it's more or less a comment. I noticed in September, the United States allowed 8,000 refugees to come into the country. I was wondering how they make a distribution as to which state they go to, or which cities, or, how do they determine that? And then my second question is, why is the United States, it appears to me the United States is the only country who's accepting refugees. What about Europe? What about Asia? What about these other countries?
You'll answer them. So there's a lot of, the thing about refugees is when the UN take out and people are allocated for US, we come through United States State Department. So for example, our experience was we got picked up from Nairobi airport. We had a translate in Brussels. And then we come through the New York port. And there they give us these bags, and it has documents. So immediately, once we get here, we are a little bit documented. We have the I-94. And then when we get settled let's say we come to Nashville, 2 weeks later, we'll be able to, once we get the address or apartment, to apply for Social Security. So the United States State Department has an agency or a program within it to facilitate all these things within the immigration. Did I answer that?
Yeah. One of the things about how is it chosen where they're destined? The first thing they look at, once the State Department approves them to come to the United States, they look at, do they have any relatives or anybody that they know in the United States? And if they do, they're going to try and resettle them in the city where that person is. If there's a resettlement agency there are hundreds of resettlement agencies across the country. In Tennessee, there are 6, 3 in Nashville, 1 in Memphis, 1 in Chattanooga, and 1 in Knoxville. If they don't have anybody they know, there is a great database somewhere in the sky. Every one of these resettlement agencies completes what's called a placement survey every year, and we go through all different types of situations and say, yes, we can handle this, or no, we can't. Can you handle a family of 5? Can you handle a family of 7? Can you handle somebody who's deaf? Can you handle somebody who's got heart problems? Can you handle somebody that needs a surgery? Can you take a single mom with children without any other employable adults in a family? And every agency goes through and, after talking with people in their city, says, here's what we can and what we can't handle. And so when they realize there's nobody they know, then they go through that database system and they go, oh, Nashville has somebody that speaks Tigrinya, and they've got some Eritreans living there. So let's see if Nashville could work with this family. And at that point, is the first time that we find out about a family. We'll get biographical information, and the question is, can you work with them? And I say either yes, we can, or no, we can't. And then anywhere from 2 weeks to several years, that family might show up. I just don't know, but eventually.
Thank you. We have a question. Is training available for someone who wants to assist someone in learning English, or is this a certification I should seek on my own?
Can you just read it one more time?
Is training available for someone who wants to assist someone in learning English, or is this a certification I should seek on my own?
Yeah, thanks. So my name is Leah Hashinger. I work at the Tennessee Foreign Language Institute. I manage our ESL to Go program there. And we do offer an excellent 150-hour Teaching English as a Second Language certification program at TFLI. It happens 3 times a year. I can give anyone here information about that. I believe we have an information session at our office in Metro Center this Friday at 6 p.m. But if you have questions about that, feel free to come to me. In terms of volunteering to teach English, I should pass the baton over here to Megan Godby. But there absolutely are ways that you can volunteer to teach ESL. Megan has created a really amazing community of professional development offerings for volunteers and professional ESL teachers. So you can touch base with her about that, or reach out to one of the 3 resettlement agencies, or to me at the Tennessee Foreign Language Institute. We all have our own version of a volunteer ESL teaching program. So you can just kind of see what's the best fit for you, whether you want to teach someone one-on-one or teach a whole class.
Okay. Megan, would you like to speak to that? Put you on the spot a little bit.
So my name is Megan Godby. I work for Nashville Public Library, and we do free professional development for people who work as educators with adult learners, and lots of those in the city are English language learners. We have a listserv of monthly events that you can be added to and find out about those opportunities. We also work to connect those resources and make referrals for students. So if you meet somebody who needs an English class and you're looking for a free English class, we have a list of those classes that are available in the city at our table out there, and we have an online listing as well. That initiative is called Pathway for New Americans, and you can visit it at pathwayfornewamericans.org.
Hi, I'm Lisa Steele, and I work here at Lipscomb with our Intercultural Development Department. I'm also a member of the Civic Leadership Cohort 4, and I will graduate next month, Lord willing. Yay! Yeah. My project was to start an intensive English class for immigrants and refugees in the southeast Nashville area near Antioch. And we have our first cohort going on right now. And they go to class 5 days a week, 4 hours a day for 12 weeks. And it's been wonderful. We're measuring them along the way as they come through it, but it's a great opportunity for them to come in and just be totally immersed in English. And so that's what we're working with. There are volunteer opportunities. It's through the branch of Nashville, which is also a food pantry, but never intended to stay a food pantry. The intention there is to help them become self-sufficient. And we feel like the first thing they need to do is to learn English. And so we have 3 areas we work on: job application, talking to school officials about their children, and health professionals about their health and their family. And that's the 3 areas that we really hone in on. So we'd love to, if you'd like to know more about that, I'd love to tell you about it. But we're real excited because it's going really well, and I see a huge, huge difference already in just a few weeks.
All right, thank you. Sounds like we've got the conversation going. You're starting to warm up a little bit. There's more to come. Our next speaker is Ms. Renata Soto, and she is the co-founder and executive director of Conexión Americas, a nonprofit organization founded in 2002 in Nashville, Following a holistic approach, Conexion Americas has developed nationally recognized programs that support each year more than 6,000 Latino families in achieving their American dream, purchasing homes, starting businesses, learning English, supporting their children's school success, and a path to college, and becoming an integral part of Nashville's social, cultural, and economic vitality. Ms. Soto's involvement with refugees began with her mother, who was a professor at the University of Costa Rica and was part of a solidarity movement that helped Civil War refugees in nearby Latin American countries. And crowning Conexion America's 10th anniversary celebration, which I believe was in 2012, is that correct? Ms. Soto's vision for a nonprofit, collaborative, and community gathering place in South Nashville became a reality. Casa Azafran, the $6 million center standing on Nolensville Pike, opened in December 2012 after a tenacious 5-year effort. The 29,000 square foot facility houses Conexion Americas and 9 nonprofit and government partners under one roof that provide health, social services, and arts and cultural programs. President Obama hosted a nationally televised town hall meeting on immigration policy at Casa Azafran last year. And I'll let you read the rest of it, but I'd like to bring her up because she has a lot to say to us, and we'll come back. And again, if you have questions, please write them on the index card. You can raise it, and we'll get them and answer questions at the end. Thank you. Please welcome her.
It's great to be here. I'm actually hosting a group of Lipscomb tomorrow at Casa Azafran, so it's a good karma that we go back and forth with each other. As you know, many people are paying attention to what's happening in Nashville, and they have said that we're worthy of attention. And just last week, Nashville hosted a group of more than 3,000 people from all over the country, mayors and elected officials, who came to see what is so special about this place. And some people attribute our greatness to our new swag. They say that they should visit Nashville because the New York Times and travel magazines say so, and they should come here because we have hot chicken festivals and cool cowboy boots and a vibrant food scene. They talk about the lively atmosphere in our downtown and the celebrities that we see, but we pretend not to see. And they talk about the many lists of why we are so good and people should visit it. But I think that one of the things that get lost in all those why you should visit Nashville lists is truly the source of our greatness. And I believe that Nashville is significant and important and memorable and worthy of a visit because of one truth, and it is that our power is in our people. And let me say a little bit of how it's people is what kept me here in Nashville. My husband and I had lived here for 8 years when his job took us away for 3 years to East Nashville. Neither one of us have relatives here, yet Nashville called us back with a pool of deep roots that we had slowly been threading with neighbors, with friends and colleagues who little by little became our adopted family. We had choices to raise our kids somewhere else, but we chose to come back to Nashville. And it's people that pull us back here. I came to the US from Costa Rica when I was 21 years old. And I never believed then that as much as I was enjoying my life here and as involved as I was in civic life in my new adopted community, that I would be able to call home any other place but the one where I grew up and that I had left behind. I really would never have thought that 20 years later, my roots in Nashville are so deep that I am so proud to call myself a Nashvillian. And is this Nashville quality to effuse love of place that has made thousands of immigrant families from all over the world to come for a job and stay to build a life. And that was also what led us to imagine an organization like Conexion Americas 13 years ago to support the aspirations and dreams of those newcomers to achieve their own version of the American dream. Whether your ancestors came here by choice or were brought here by force, The movement of people from one place to another is a common thread in the history of humanity that binds us together. That story of immigration is your family's story too. Whether your parents arrived from Kurdistan 10 years ago, or your great-great-great-great-parents arrived from Ireland or Germany 100 years ago, that's the story we all need to share. Our own. When we do, I believe that that's when we will start changing the conversation. Now, why have Latinos moved to Nashville and why have we stayed? At a one-on-one elementary simplistic immigration one-on-one class level, Nashville had a growing demand for nannies and domestic workers, as well as restaurant and hotel housekeepers, bricklayers, masons, roofers, framers, and other construction workers who were brought here during the economic boom of the 1990s. We came to build Opryland and the Titan Stadium and the arena and all the suburbs around Middle Tennessee. Once here with steady jobs, we sent for our families. We brought our husbands, wives, and children who we had left behind in places with little job opportunities, high poverty, and a sense of hopelessness for the future. Many of us didn't bring high school diplomas, but what we lack in formal education, we brought in entrepreneurial spirit. And we started businesses that created jobs for ourselves, for other relatives, and for other Nashvillians. Thanks to our restaurants and ethnic markets, Nashvillians began to rejoice in their city's newly infused cosmopolitan flair, although some did not welcome our new faces in different languages as much. While we worked 2 or more jobs to take care of our families here and send a little help back to our relatives' home, we still made the effort to go to English classes. Despite the challenges, we started to dig deep roots and not only build beautiful houses for others, but we found our own and are now calling Music City Center, Music City, proudly our home. Every day at Conexión Americas, we see the faces of the new Nashville. We help map pathways to progress, and we find ourselves swirling in the midst of transformation that rises silently and steadily like hope and grows deep like roots. We see it in the emerging generation of Latino Southerners. They eat chess pie and tacos, fried pickles and empanadas, and they wear an I Love Mexico t-shirt with the same pride of I Love Titans jersey. They speak Spanish to their parents and English to their friends with a beautiful Southern drawl. At Conexión Americas, we meet the people and learn the stories behind the statistics. And that's our challenge, your challenge. How to bring out and share the stories behind the statistics so everyone can see each other's humanity and greatness. We meet visionaries in our small business development program, and upon graduation, we call them entrepreneurs. We meet adult learners in our English classes, and after a semester or 2 or a year, we call them readers, writers, storytellers. We meet mothers and fathers with a 6th grade education in our Padres Comprometidos, our parental school engagement program, and upon completion of that program, we honor them as their children's most important teacher. We meet ambitious students in high school in our Escalera program and support them, mentor them on their journey to become the first in their families to graduate from high school and go to college. We know that one day we will call them social workers, programmers, architects, teachers, and elected officials. In our commercial kitchen and culinary incubator, we see the rich culinary traditions of many countries become thriving catering businesses, food trucks, and wholesale enterprises that contribute greatly to the economic vitality of our city. And we don't see the quintessential American immigration story unfold in front of our eyes only in classrooms and kitchens. We see it in neighborhoods where hardworking families invest their life savings, claim their roots in a new city, and buy a house through our homeownership program. Just a couple of weeks ago, Jose Araujo, our newest homeowner, got the keys and opened the door of his family's home in Madison. And the stories in pursuit of the dreams and aspirations of immigrant families are also unfolding in the hallways of Congress in Washington, D.C., and Legislative Plaza right here in Nashville. For example, last March, I was really thrilled to travel with 2 students from Glencliff High School who were taking their first airplane ride to travel to our nation's capital to join hundreds of youth and other adults from all over the country to advocate for comprehensive immigration reform. And that topic is, of course, very important today, as presidential candidates bringing immigration policy to the headlines with a tone of xenophobia and bigotry that has reached new lows, and that we have to say loud and clear that history is not waiting, that the new futures are being imagined and pursued and fought for inside the walls of high schools, in the homes of hardworking families, and in the hearts of parents who one day left everything they knew behind for the opportunity, a fresh start, and a better life, and a future in a new land. And this is why history is not waiting here in Nashville, and why this national conversation is so critical to our local reality. The numbers are very clear. Tennessee has the 3rd fastest growing Hispanic community in the nation. We have one of the fastest immigrant communities in the nation. The number of Latino immigrant children in our schools is growing every day. 24% of kindergartners already in metro schools here in Nashville are Hispanic. And let's consider one more figure. By the year 2040, 32% of our population will be Hispanic. So let's think about that again. By the year 2040, more than 1/3 of our community will represent a mix of primarily immigrants and native-born Nashvillians whose parents are immigrants. And that's why immigration reform is as much a national emergency as it is a local priority. When we talk about refugees and immigrants, we understand that common sense immigration reform is a national and local priority because we have a broken, outdated system that does not represent the interests of our country. Our immigration laws today don't serve our family values well. As a refugee from a war-torn country, it may take you years to be reunited with your relatives. Our immigration laws don't serve employers well either. Outdated quotas determine how many people from which country for what occupation can obtain a visa. Our immigration laws don't work for workers either. Our broken system has welcomed millions of individuals to respond to labor local needs, but has kept them as an underclass of invisible, exploitable, undocumented workers. And our immigration laws don't serve our national security interest either. We are less safe as a nation when we don't recognize millions of individuals who are already part of our communities, but who have no system through which they can be accounted. At Conexión Americas, every day we see the faces of an outdated immigration system that welcomes them, but almost as second-class citizens. An outdated immigration system that degrades their humanity. In the underground way, it encourages them to come here. In the way that exposes them to exploitation once they arrive here. And in the way that isolates them from community life. I know this is a nation of laws, and that rule of law is one of the greatest foundations upon which this country is built. But this is not simply a nation of laws. This is a nation of just laws, like Dr. King reminds us. It is in that aspiration of justice for all that lays the strength of this nation. And as Nashvillians, we have to understand that it is in the best interest of our city and its future prosperity that we fix our immigration system. But it is also in our best interest to understand that we don't have to wait for Congress to take the courage to fix this problem, and that we must support and implement local policies right here in Nashville, in our school systems, in Metro, in universities, in nonprofits, in local businesses that are welcoming and that build a truly inclusive city. And I believe that if we do so, the future of Nashville will be bright. I think our future is bright if when we look into the eyes of young people like Mohammed, each of us sees ourselves, our own children, our own dreams, our own humanity. I think our future is bright if when we look into his parents' eyes, we see a neighbor whose life relates to our own, a common tale of wanting to provide our children with opportunities to allow them to reach their full potential. I think our future is bright if we celebrate the roots and possibilities of all people. The roots and possibilities of all people, where we come from, and the promise and greatness that each of us have in us. I'll take your questions.
Thank you.
And that was not 15 minutes because I knew you wanted more conversation.
Oh, yeah. No, this is wonderful. And I know you have questions. Now, we didn't go quiet. Remember, this is a conversation this evening. So I'll kick us off. And I know there are more coming. Okay? This is a three-part question that just came up. How is the nonprofit funded? What is the impact the nonprofit has had on the Nashville community? And where is the best authentic Mexican food? Who sent that up?
All right, that's a good question. Okay.
Okay.
So
I'll leave that.
Conexión Americas is funded by a diverse group of supporters, from people who donate $10 to the federal government, who has invested $2 million, and everything in between. All local family foundations, our local government, also support Conexión Americas. Casa Azafrán, the nonprofit collaborative that we've established almost 3 years ago, is also funded by local, private, and public funding. And it is also supported by the rent that our partners and tenants pay to cover the operating costs. So we also create and generate income from the rent that partners pay to maintain and support turning on the lights and all the things that go into maintaining a building. What is the impact this nonprofit has in the Nashville community? So we have been around for 13 years. Today, every year, we touch the lives of about 6,000 individuals and their families, and that is either because they buy a house through our program, because they start a business, or they grew a business that already existed and are able to create more jobs. And sometimes if it's a side thing next to a full-time job, we help them for that business to become the most important sustaining source of income for the family. And I think that the most important way, I hope, in which we are making an impact in the Nashville community is really making a transformational trajectory in the lives of families by making sure that students will become the first in their families to graduate from high school and go to college. I think that there is an important investment to be made in the lives of those children and what that means in changing a trajectory of poverty for them and their future. And I would hope that also Conexión Americas is contributing to be a voice to provide the need for creating tables to talk about how do we create a welcoming and inclusive city. And that is either pushing our mayor for welcoming policies or the state to not pass policies that do not advance the progress that we have made in our state in 50 years. And I hope that we're also making a difference by having the opportunity to have young people like you have Conexión be a place of volunteering and sometimes the first place where people right after college start their professional career. And I'm proud that many of our employees, we are the place where they start their careers after they graduated from Lipscomb or other colleges. And I think that that's also an important moment of pride for us to make sure that we are a seed of many seeds that we're planting for many people that are growing to become very involved Nashvillians who will maybe stay for a few years with us and will go somewhere to do other great things. Where is the best authentic Mexican food? That's a hard one. But what I can tell you, I don't know about restaurant, but there is a restaurant on Harding called La Michoacana, and that is the best place for like ice cream and fruit and desserts and frescas and other traditional fruit-based drinks. It is one of the businesses that we're proud that we have supported. It's a family business, and I'll make sure that I'll send you the exact address, La Michoacana.
Okay, thank you. Is there another question? No? Yes. Can you please stand so we can hear you? And I'll.
Well, I'm still pinching myself. Of course, you know, welcoming a sitting president is a big honor regardless of political affiliation. And certainly we felt the love of Nashville that day because even though the audience was very small by request from the White House, we really felt the support and love and pride of Nashvillians all over the city who were proud that the faces in that room and Casa Safran was what Nashville and the rest of the country was seeing. So honestly, I thank him. I thank him for coming to Nashville and highlighting us as a bright spot in that conversation. Often people think of the Southeast as a place not of progress or innovative or progressive policies. And I think it was great that the president chose to come to Nashville and highlighted the work of many people, from our mayor, our council, and the nonprofit organizations that have been resettling refugees for many years, to the new organizations like ours who have been working with immigrants. So all the words I had was to thank him for the $2 million the federal government invested in Casa Safran, but also for making a statement by choosing Nashville and not a border state or California, which could have been a more predictable choice for having a town hall on immigration policies. But choosing Nashville was as a good recognition that Latinos in particular are now everywhere, and we're part of communities all over the country. And that when communities get together at the table and face the challenges that a demographic change bring, because there are challenges, we move forward. And that he felt that Nashville was facing the challenge in the right way. And so I thank him for choosing us to be the stage of his conversation.
This is one last question that came from the audience. Please give a few examples of anti-refugee or anti-immigrant policies in the past and any expected in the next legislative session. And related to that is, what would you share with the presidential candidates to change immigration laws?
So, you know, the environment in Tennessee fortunately has changed, although now it seems to be changing and taking a downturn. But I can tell you, when we started Conexión Americas and the Tennessee Immigrant and Refugee Rights Coalition, which came along about the same way, there were years that were like 65 bills that we were fighting, right? From things that were just about making life very difficult for immigrant families, so they would hope to like make it so difficult that they would want to stay here. That started with the fight with driver licenses, actually, and that was before we were around as an organization, but what brought individuals like myself and others to the table to talk about the sentiments that were coming out of the state legislature that were symptoms of grasping that demographic change in all kinds of places in Tennessee. And so the driver license is one specific example, but then I think that more recently, the one that we need to be concerned about, for many years, the target was undocumented families, right? Like that we have to demonetize ourselves. We make it too easy and too attractive for people to come here who don't have papers. But then the conversation became a fear of people of Muslim faith. And in the last year, our legislature has been more about how do we make sure that Islam is not recognized as a religion that, like, our ancestors and our founders of our nation came here to found this country based on, right? And so I think that it has changed the target, but I think the underlying sentiment is the same, right? Like the change is hard, and that unfortunately we have a system where in urban areas like Nashville, where we have the largest concentration of immigrants and refugees, and where we probably have then legislatures that represent more the will of the people and that we want to become welcoming communities, they are a minority at the state legislature, right? Like there are a lot of rural representatives where their feelings about a changing Tennessee are different than how we feel about it here in Nashville or in Memphis or in Chattanooga. And so part of the challenge is that we have the mentality and the voices of urban state legislatures who hopefully would be echoing what I'm saying, with others who fear the change. And if one day is the undocumented Mexican immigrant, today is the Islamic woman who's wearing something that I don't feel comfortable that she's wearing. I think that one of the great successes, though, is that in the last 2 years, for the first time, we were able to be for something and not against something. And thanks to the leadership of the Tennessee Immigrant and Refugee Rights Coalition and the young people that organized the fight for tuition equality, meaning that all children in Tennessee who graduate from a high school here and meet certain criteria can go to college and be recognized as a Tennessee resident and pay as a Tennessee student resident instead of paying as an international student, which is 3 times the price. Unfortunately, we were short by 1 vote last year, but that in itself was a great victory. And I know that the Turk and Conexión Americas and other allies are already hard at work to bring this up again in January. And we hope that this time we will cross the line and we will get all the votes so everybody gets the chance to go to a public education, have a public higher education, paying as the Tennessee residents that they are.
All right, please thank Ms. Soto. Thank you, thank you. And our other speakers. We've had great conversation. We've had 3 speakers who really have, and I've seen a lot of heads nodding that you're in agreement. There's something that has touched you from each one of these speakers in your lives. And so we want to continue for just a few more moments and have more of a conversation at your tables. And at every table, there is someone from our class who will lead a discussion. There are 3 questions. Can the questions go up? That will be asked, and these 3 questions will lead to changing the narrative. And what you discuss this evening, we will take and put into an opinion editorial piece that we will submit to the Tennessean and other local publications to make them aware of what people here in Nashville are thinking about. So our 3 questions: is there a problem with the current narrative on refugees or immigrants in our community? How do we change the narrative about refugees, immigrants in our community, and identify at least 2 to 3 action steps that can be taken to change the narrative? So let's begin, and you'll have about 10 minutes, and then we'll report back and talk a little bit about what was discussed at your tables. Refugees.
When someone hears something about an immigrant, it kind of just reflects on everyone.
It's kind of like a ripple effect.
Yeah.
You know, it's kind of like, oh, I heard this, you know. Oh, okay.
Yeah,
you
so
know,
like if someone does something bad, like it just reflects on everyone else. So it's kind of how
and it's not all that true, you know. Exactly. Right, exactly. So.
And And it seems like there's a very negative connotation to the word refugee and the word immigrant. I mean, it's like, you know, when people hear that word, they automatically think of bad or not, you know, unwelcome or whatever. So
It's definitely a xenophobic mindset.
yeah.
Say it again.
It's definitely a xenophobic mindset.
Yeah,
Without a doubt.
it is. I like it. We're talking. How do we change the narrative about refugee immigrants in our community?
I think having conversations like this definitely helps, and I think more of that needs to happen around the community, around the state, around the country, really.
Yeah.
But you have to start somewhere, you know, and I think having these kinds of conversations, like especially at the educational level, like colleges and universities and stuff, is really important because
That
you know,
way
we're
it
the
can
future. Yeah.
trickle down,
Mhm.
into other, I guess, groups or organizations and things like that. Do you think that, and this is kind of off the record, do you think that if more people volunteer to learn more, then the negative concepts and things like that will kind of go away?
I think so, definitely. Because it seems like most people, especially like rural areas and stuff like that,
Yeah.
they seem to just believe what they're told, you know.
Yeah.
So if they grow up thinking that immigrants bad, refugees are bad, blah blah blah, they're gonna believe that.
Right. And not
Unless,
just-
unless they're given other information, then they can make their own choice.
Take us back to the one of the picture.
Yes. You know I like them.
All right. Let's get your attention again, please. Thank you all for participating at the tables. And we want to hear what your thoughts are so we can put this together. And as you leave, if you didn't get a chance to sign in, please do so we can stay in touch with you so you know the results that came out of this evening. We're going to start in the back with the table, reporting out. Trey, do you want to go first, please?
We have a formal request for more time, but we can address that later.
No.
So a couple of the, I guess you could call it low-hanging fruit, but it was mentioned earlier and touched on, just having open conversations, being a neighbor, educating ourselves, and moving forward with that. And then understanding the human element of the folks that we're seeing and start a relationship and buy in on a personal level for ourselves and share that where we go.
Okay. All right. Maridel?
Oh, we didn't have enough time. Everybody else had more time than we did. We want to protest that.
Okay.
We Southerners talk too slow. It takes us too long to say what we're going to say. Beautiful conversation here talking about ways to change the narrative. A point well made was that the beautiful thing about narrative is it's fluid. It's so it can be ever changing, and it takes intentionality to do that. One other thing that was brought up was the public service announcements that encourage us to volunteer with agencies that support refugees is very helpful. The question at the table was, how do I find somebody to be a friend to? So other than go to an ethnic restaurant and go bang on the kitchen door, I don't, but maybe a little bit softer touch might be just to volunteer at one of these lovely agencies that's represented here tonight and dozens of others in this town that's doing great work.
Great. All right. Marquita.
Again, not enough time.
There seems to be a pattern here, but
right. No, we had a great discussion at our table, and we even had some stories brought by a recent immigrant to our community. And one of the things that was brought about was just desensitizing American privilege and knowing that the process is not easy, and just hearing their whole story and just listening and opening your ears, your minds, your hearts, just like you would a newcomer that is from our country. And so great points from our table, and the main one being that desensitizing the American privilege, most definitely.
Great. All right. And Derek?
Mm-hmm. Half of my table already left.
That's okay. That's all right.
Okay. Some of the action steps that we came up with was creating opportunities for communities to interact with different organizations and get knowledgeable about the different communities and refugees countries, would you say? Citizens that are here now, like the Muslims. Who was it you said? It's okay. Who was it you said? On Saturday, last Saturday.
On Sunday,
there we go.
I'm sure some people are aware. On Sunday, there was a spiritual crawl, which took a bus full, I think it was 150 people, from the Jewish temple to the Hindu temple to the mosque to learn about different religious communities. And opportunities like that create spaces for conversation and for engaging. And so I think that more opportunities like that would be fruitful.
Okay.
Also, knowledge of growth by the population and more exposure. That is what we came up with.
Okay. All right. Sharon? I see Sharon.
Wonderful conflict resolution students, deep thinkers, and fast thinkers, too. We had plenty of time.
Okay. All right. See, I knew it. Yes.
And some great ideas that came from the table. Some of them have already been said, but the ones that we can add to would be a food truck caravan, have a more seminal kind of experience with different cultures. So those food trucks would have different cultural foods, using the arts and creating art centers and art projects where we can take it in the community level and do it. More awareness in the rural areas by maybe using some of these tools to take it to the rural areas so they can have this experience and, expose them so that their minds can grow in this area. Integrating this conversation in our everyday lives, not just having this conversation one time a month, but finding ways to make it happen kind of every day in everything we do. Just making a bit more in the fabric of who we are and how we talk about these issues.
Okay. Now, I know our time is tight, so I'm going to ask Megan, is there anything different that hasn't been said? Oh, I'm sorry, or Alana?
One thing we have a new one. One thing we were talking about with Workers' Dignity, they're doing their own kind of outreach. They're creating a radio station, 104.1. So that's what they're doing on their own, to empower themselves. Two things that we talked about was bringing to light exportation of our actual jobs in America. They're being exported here, but when they're outsourced, they're also exploiting in other countries. And for other immigrants and refugees to meet with other immigrants and refugees of different time periods, different generations, to learn about their immigration stories, because history seems to repeat itself, and they can learn from other people, so we can stop some cycles and things from happening.
Okay. All right. I have Dan, Penny, Paul. You have something different to add? Yes, Paul does, he says.
A lot of them have left, but they brought an interesting part that confounds the problem, and they brought up that social economic differences that often coincide with ethnic and cultural difference exacerbates the problem. And along that line of thinking, they started to say, from their own experience, going to homeless ministries very early in the morning were transformative, so that we should start teaching civics and civic engagement at a much younger age and create programs that involve young people so that this becomes part of their normal culture and it crosses those social economic boundaries.
Okay, that's great. All right, Dan?
So I've got one thing to add, really. I think the common thread in a lot of our speakers today was that really engaging one-on-one or having that American friend. And the question around our table was, who do we approach, or is there, somebody even said, is there a big brothers, big sisters connection with an American friend? So if anybody wants to start something, I have the perfect name for it, American Friend. But that doesn't exist here in Nashville yet, so I think the big thing is really the power of one, and just going out and connecting with any one of our resettlement agencies that are with us, the ones that aren't with us, and by you volunteering, getting connected with one person, your friends are going to find out, because you're going to introduce that person to your friend because they're fantastic people. And that was really what we came up with as a group.
Okay. Penny, William, anything to add?
Yeah, we had a really great discussion at our table. We got some more excellent input from Muhammad, of course, and some things we came up with. Community organizations stepping up and playing an important role in teaching the public to recognize how immigrants are true community builders, and most importantly, from a religious standpoint, using community outreach through the Family of Abraham, Christians, Muslims, and the Jewish communities getting together and just having discussions and talking and getting familiar with one another. That's pretty much it. Thank you.
Penny has. giving Keno a workout this evening.
I went to class this morning too, so thanks for the twice a day.
The only point that was not made that we wanted to highlight was, what's your name? Emily. She speaks so quiet. Emily had a really good point, and that was, we noticed there are communities of times that, whether intentional or not, there's a division that sometimes we don't want to talk about that is occurring sometime with knowledge and understanding. And one of the ways that the table here, this wonderful group came up with, of just breaking that, is about making what you see in the media, the fearful things, the things you do and don't understand, making it real. So back to everyone's point, connecting what you see and what you fear with someone that's real, that has more in common with you than they have that's not alike.
All right, thank you. Did you have anything?
I didn't really have anything to add, but my table, hi guys, we just talked about having resources. Not everyone, you know, you have something available to say, hey, well, how do I do this? Where do I go? So we wanted to, I'm sorry, Mr. Cameron. We just wanted to have resources. I think everybody touched on everything that we discussed at our table, but the main thing we talked about was resources.
All right, thank you. And I've asked Ms. Soto to come back and kind of give a response to what you all have talked about at your table. So we're going to take just a few more minutes.
Less than that, just the key words that I heard, then maybe the order in which I put them brings everything you said together. Immigrants equal community building, focus on youth, civic engagement, history, radio, food brings people together, rural outreach, exposure, engagement, cross-cultural opportunities, connect, volunteer, tell the story, change the conversation.
Please give yourselves a hand for all the work you've done this evening. Thank you for coming. And I want to acknowledge our guests. We have people who participated in the video. You're here this evening. Tennessee Immigrant and Refugee Rights Coalition, the Nashville International Center for Empowerment, the Tennessee Foreign Language Institute, Tennessee Human Rights Commission, Nashville Public Library, Workers' Dignity, Mayor's Office of New Americans, RISE After School Program, the Tennessee Coalition to End Domestic and Sexual Violence, Tennessee Office of Refugees, and Lipscomb University Intercultural Affairs. Thank you again for this evening. It's been a great conversation. It would not have happened. Let's continue the conversation. Please make sure we have a way to contact you. Sign outside at the registration table. Take a brochure with you, and let's stay in touch. Thank you.